the supply. So really, this is just such an amazing tool created by a very reputable organization. And then we also identifies how water is being used for personal, agricultural, and industrial purposes. Again, 22 hotspots are already active. This map will be updated and more will be added. Next slide, please. So when we think about how we use water, which is what this map really does, there are three key ways that we use water, that we use fresh water in the world today. The first one is through irrigation. Most farming needs irrigation as a way for us to grow the vegetables, to grow the food that we eat. Unfortunately, also irrigation takes up a lot of the fresh water that we use. Irrigation water is very essential for keeping fruits, vegetables, and grains growing to feed the world's population. So we need this. It's not like we can, because we don't want to use water, not use water for irrigation. But 70% of all the world's freshwater withdrawals go towards irrigation uses. So that's quite a big chunk of the water that we use. And large-scale farming is one of the biggest culprits using this freshwater irrigation. So this map tries to be able to visualize the different areas and how much of water is being used for irrigation in different areas. Next slide, please. The next one is looking at industrial use of water. Industries use water, maybe not as much as we use for irrigation, but industries use water as part of their processes, as part of how they create the things they create, as part of how they run the industries that they run. So again, this freshwater map has a certain emphasis on how industries around the world are using water. And as you can tell, I mean, as you can imagine, more of the industrialized parts of the world use a lot more water than the less industrialized parts of the world. According to the United Nations World Water Development Report, industry accounts for about 22% of all global water withdrawals. Now, of this 22%, 59% of that is used by high-income countries, compared to 8% in low-income countries. So again, that shows you the disparity in the usage of water for industries. But again, despite the disparity, we are looking at this from a global point of view, because globally we are suffering from the impacts of this. Next slide, please. And then the final one we look at is the personal use of water. We all use water. We all use water this morning to bathe. We use water to cook the food that we eat. So the personal use of water or domestic water use is also a very big strain in the way that we use water. Again, as you can imagine, a lot more places use more water than other places. There was a data I saw when I was preparing for this presentation that says in the US alone, a family in the US uses 3,640 gallons of water to water their lawns. Again, that's amazing. You know, it's beautiful to have green lawns, but again, the impact of what we use water to do for domestic uses. So really, you know, bringing this out there and putting it out there makes us understand the challenges that we're facing and makes us rethink how we use water and rethink how can we be able to preserve water. That is part of what we wanted to do with this initiative. Now, there's a brief 2-minute video that we're going to show you that really captures what this initiative is about. So I'm going to let Steph run that video for you. Then we'll come back and look at how we can be able to use this for your work.
Steph, hello. We can't hear the audio to the video. Maybe you should share it again and share video, sorry.
The audio is not there. However, the subtitles are the same thing on the audio. So if we're having challenges, we can just look at the subtitles.
I could also switch to sharing the video file itself.
Okay, please.
One moment.
Welcome to the World Water Map, a geovisualization of the world's freshwater. Think of it as a map that accounts for every drop of water in the world and where it's going. Developed by the National Geographic Society in partnership with Utrecht University and Esri, the map takes you on a visual and interactive journey to understand the water gap and the drivers of water scarcity around the world. Test your knowledge. Do you know how much irrigation and agriculture impact our water demand? The water gap and freshwater issues are important to investigate at many scales. Go on a journey to see how the water gap is playing out in your community and around the world. Over the course of the 5-year World Freshwater Initiative program, the National Geographic Society will award grants to changemakers working in freshwater science, conservation, education, and storytelling. Here you can find information about the current and upcoming grants the Society is funding to tell the stories of freshwater around the world. In addition to this map, National Geographic Society is bringing data to life by telling the stories of the individuals and communities affected by the global water crisis. The Society launched the World Freshwater Initiative, a 5-year program to better understand freshwater availability issues around the world and inspire sustainable action. Dive into this water gap dataset, created by hydrology and modeling experts at Utrecht University. You can choose to view water demand or the water gap for different areas. You can also choose to see the entire gap or just the gap by sector, industrial, irrigation, and domestic use of water. This map is a game changer to better understand and mitigate against water issues impacting communities across the globe. You can see this map and more at natgeo.org/freshwater.
Thank you so much, Steph. So as you can see, this is such an amazing resource because you have a platform that enables you to be able to go in and really look at water and how water is being used globally, and to understand the water gaps. Where do we have more water? Where do we have less water? Where are we regenerating water at a higher speed than the rest? So really, when we created this, when we thought about doing this, we looked at people that could really benefit from having such an easy visual database. Obviously, journalists for effective data reporting. Most of you here, write a lot of long format stories, and you need data. You need to be able to break data down. I like what Fred talked about when he was opening. He says that part of what you want to do is to defamiliarize issues using data. This is what this map can do for you. Storytellers, creatives, documentary filmmakers, people telling stories in different genres can be able to use this map as a way, again, to tell the story of water and the impact of water and how we're using water. Later on, we're going to talk about some of the grants we've already made to storytellers that look at some of the ways that storytellers are already beginning to use this map. Policymakers are very important for it because policy is what we need to be able to stem the tide. You can write a lot of stories, you can do a lot of advocacy, you can do a lot of activism unless policy changes, unless our governments begin to create policy that lets us address this issue, we might not have that much impact. So policymakers can also use this tool. Academicians and researchers are always a very, very good constituency that can be able to use this tool to publish and write about the impact of water usage in the work that they do. One of the things about this is that the data that is behind this map is also data that can be made available to different people, so you can be able to use that data to play and model and do your own different analysis to come up with some of the results that you want. So academicians and researchers can have access to the raw data that went behind creating this map. And then general users, those of us that are interested enough in trying to understand how water is being used, can also use this map. Next slide, please. So if you look at specifically the group that is here today, how do we think you can be able to use this map as a way to report on freshwater issues in Africa? Obviously, we've talked about data stories. This map allows you to be able to create stories that explain difficult concepts. Oftentimes, it's difficult to be able to create linkages between A and B when it comes to environmental issues. We've had a lot of challenges in the Sahel region, a lot of challenges with drought in Kenya, in Somalia, in Ethiopia, and other parts of the continent. Having access to data that goes back 40 years enables you to be able to model and then hopefully understand the trends that could lead to some of these challenges happening again. So really exploring those linkages about water usage, about climate change, about drought can be a good way for you to be able to almost project things that will happen if we don't change the way that we're behaving. If we don't change how we're using water now, what could be the impact 10 years from now? This map could also be a good tool for solutions journalism. Most of you know that this is a new approach to journalism that tries to investigate and explain in a critical and clear-out way how people can try to solve widely shared problems. Water shortage is a widely shared problem, and having access to this data is a good tool that you, as journalists working on these issues, can be able to use to tell how can we address these issues? What can we do? What individual things can we do to conserve more water usage in our home? What more can factories do? What different agricultural techniques can be used to conserve water? So solutions journalism can be able to use this data as a way to, again, recommend solutions to these problems. This map can help us create linkages between water usage and drought, and also between drought and other challenges such as famine, etc. I'm originally from Nigeria, as I've said, and most of you know about the Boko Haram crisis that we've had in Nigeria. 2-3 years ago, Mercy Corps did some extensive research in the Lake Chad Basin, where this issue really is very prevalent. And one of the things they found out was that the Boko Haram issue has actually been exacerbated by the drying up of the Lake Chad Basin. The Lake Chad Basin used to be the source of livelihood for many young people in that region. It was how they were able to feed their cattle. It was how they were able to do agriculture. But because of climate change, the Lake Chad Basin has basically dried up. So most of these young people did not have anything else that they could do. So they became easy fodder to be recruited for terrorism and some of the things that Boko Haram was doing. So again, looking at this enables us to be able to create linkages about water shortage and all the other challenges that are being created because of water shortage. Famine is a big challenge that is being created because of water shortage. So again, looking at this map, looking at this data and using it can enable you to be able to write stories that make these linkages. The map helps you to create an argument for policy initiatives to address issues of drought. Like I said earlier on, policy is one way that we can be able to address these issues. It is the strongest way. So this map allows you to be able to write stories that policymakers can use as a motivation to begin creating policies on water preservation, to begin creating policies on some of the things that can be done before it's too late. Next slide, please. So as we said, we launched this map in March this year during the UN Water Day. There has been a lot of people using these maps. I'm sharing a few headlines that have come out there from Kenya, India, newspapers all over the world. So this map is live, is active, is being used. And we really hope that after this session, you can be able to tap into this map as a tool that will enable you to do your work. Next slide, please. As I said earlier, the next part of this work is the grant making that National Geographic Society is supporting storytellers, supporting scientists, and supporting educators to be able to use data from this map to tell stories about water and water usage. We've already done our first round of grants on storytelling. We'll be starting the next round of grants in science and education later on this year. So I'm going to talk a little bit more about the storytelling grants that we did. Next slide, please. So the storytelling grants that we did was, started this process last year. We sent out a request for proposal. We received more than 200 applications from around the world from storytellers. And part of the criteria was that they tell stories using the data from the map and using these hotspots that have already been identified from the map. So of those more than 200 applications, we're able to make 10 grants. These 10 grants have activities going on in, I believe, 7 countries: Tanzania, United States, India, Indonesia, Peru, Bosnia, Herzegovina, French Polynesia, and Colombia. These are activities already going on now. Most of these people are out in the field collecting data and creating stories that look at the impact of water shortage and looking at lifting the voices of organizations and individuals that are doing and tried innovative ways to be able to address water shortage. I'm going to talk briefly about 3 of these grants, and then after that, I will wrap up. One of the grants went to a filmmaker in Tanzania, and the project is called The Land of Lost Lakes. I did not know this until I read about this grant, that the city of Dar es Salaam is one of the fastest growing cities in the world because of urbanization. And Dar es Salaam was once the home to 3 lakes. Actually, the term Dar es Salaam came from the land of 3 lakes. Most of these lakes have dried up because of urbanization. Most of these lakes have been filled, buildings, a lot of water has been used. So this grantee is basically doing a look at how did we get to this space where very vibrant lakes dry up over a series of years because of urbanization. She's going to be doing a documentary film. She's going to be doing 3D modeling and also mapping the readjustment of the water space in Dar es Salaam and in Tanzania. Again, this project is already active, and we're working with her to make sure that this content is being created. And when it's created, it will be disseminated and used as a tool to inform people in that area about what they can do to be able to address this issue. Next slide, please. The next one is Punjab, India. This one looks at the use of water for agriculture. As you know, India is one of the biggest population centers in the world, so they need to grow a lot of food. And to be able to do that, they use irrigation to grow food. So this project, again, is a photojournalist in India that is looking at green revolution and groundwater crisis in Punjab, India. Because of the need to grow food, they are using water for irrigation, and this has created a water crisis. They have been pumping so much water to be able to grow this food. So this project will explore how groundwater depletion and erratic rainfall is impacting food production and pushing farmers further into debt, because now the water has reduced significantly. They cannot be able to grow the food at the level that they used to be able to grow it. So it's having an impact on farmers and them being able to be viable in the work that they do in India and in the food that they grow. So again, if we don't address these issues down the road, this could eventually lead to famine. That's why having this data is good, and creating these stories is good. Again, the outputs from this will be a photo essay, it will be written stories, and then there'll also be short video stories. And next slide, please. And then the last one is a project called American Adaptation, which is looking at the American West. Most of you, I'm sure, have heard the news about the western states in the US like California, Colorado, Oregon. All of them rely on the Colorado River Basin for their water. Unfortunately, climate change is depleting the water in this Colorado River Basin. So now there are a lot of policies that are being created as a way to be able to address this depletion of the resource and to find ways to be able to solve this problem. So Caitlin is a visual journalist that's going to be doing a photo essay to, again, elevate this story and talk about some of the solutions that are being proposed as a way to, again, try to address this problem. So these are just 3 of 10 grants that we've done in the storytelling space already, using data from this map, focusing on the 22 hotspots that are already out there, and we'll be doing a lot more of this. So next steps. One of the things we want you to do after today is go and visit the map. World Water Map .nationalgeographic.org is free, it's available to all. Go and visit it. Go and do a test drive and look at, see if some of your countries are in the hotspots already there. If they are not there, keep coming back, because we'll be updating this regularly and adding more and more hotspots. So really, please, I invite you to go and visit this spot. My colleague Steph, who is here, you can reach out to her for any press inquiries or interview requests regarding this walk around the World Water Map. I'm available to speak to any of you. Our colleagues at Utrecht University are also available to speak to any of you. We have a geographer at National Geographic, Lake State, who is also available to speak to. So if you're doing a story and need to get an interview, reach out to Steph, and Steph can be able to connect you with us to give you the data that you need. Spread the word about the map in your networks, tweet about it, put it on LinkedIn, let other journalists know that this tool is available. Part of what we're trying to do is to make people understand that they have a resource that they can use in doing their work. So help us spread the word about the map. And if you use the map as a resource for a story that you've written, share the story with us and we can link it to the map. If you use the particular hotspot, part of what we're trying to do is to make sure that we create this portal where people can go and get access to stories. So please, if you have something that you use it to write a story that relates to the map or relates to water issues, send it to Steph, send it to me, share it with us, and we can be able to look at how we can be able to elevate you and the work you're doing. Because part of why we're doing this is to create awareness about water and to look at solutions of what we can do. If we just stay silent, this crisis will only continue. Thank you so much for the time. And I think we'll have some time to be able to do more interaction, and I can answer some questions, and also my colleagues that are here can answer some of your questions. Thank you very much. I think I give it back to our hosts.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Professor Paul. That was quite insightful and interesting at the same time. I'm sure most of us have been watching lots of outputs from NatGeo from when we were children, and NatGeo has always been a favorite to most of us. So thank you so much for this new development, and wish you all the best. We hope you're going to use the resources you've just shared to develop even more insightful stories out of this. Maybe just a few questions to you, having noted what you have just said. Would like to know, since InfoNile, we basically cover stories on water and the environment in the Nile Basin. Are you aware of some of the undercovered stories on water in the Nile Basin and where the map can provide information on?
I think I lost your audio at the end there. Can you please repeat the question?
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes, I can hear you now.
Okay, so my question is, what are some of the major undercovered stories on water in the Nile Basin where the map can provide information on?
Okay. I'll try to answer the question you dropped off again. I think, as I said earlier on, there are already 22 hotspots that are active in the map today, and 2 of those hotspots, I believe, are in the African continent. There's one in Sudan, and I will have to confirm the other one. So we already have 2 that could be very useful to some of the journalists that are already working on this. NatGeo as a group also investing a lot of water work around the Okavango Basin. So Okavango is also one of the hotspots that we have on the map, and we can also be able to, again, give responses to questions that you have regarding the work that we're already doing. But the whole idea why we created this was to make it as a resource for journalists. So even if you feel like what the story you're working on the map doesn't address it now, as I said earlier on, keep checking back because we'll be updating the map. We also have access to the data set, so you can also reach out to us and we'll let you know how you can be able to download the data set, and then that will also help you in creating your stories. There are a lot of stories about water issues across the African region. I've already talked about one in the Boko Haram in Nigeria. We already know that the drought issue in Kenya, in Somalia, is a big story. So these are all some of the things that having access to good data will help you as a journalist to be able to do convincing stories.
Okay, so maybe what the bit that you missed on the question is, you had said that there are many stories that can be covered on water. So my focus is on, are there any undercovered stories on water that you know of?
Okay, any undercovered stories? Of course, I think there are many undercover stories. I think we don't cover enough stories about usage of water. I think we often wait till there is a crisis before we start looking at water. Let's face it. If you look at journalism, water journalism is not a sexy topic, whether we like it or not. It's a topic that is elevated when there is a crisis. So a lot of the undercoverage has to be in looking at what leads to that crisis. I think, how many papers in Africa today have a dedicated water reporter? Probably not too many, because as many media outlets are beginning to reduce expenses, one of the things that goes are those things that are not seen as being very, very important. And I mean, I can think of in my interactions with many journalists and many papers, I've never really met a reporter that is dedicated to water issues. And again, that is because we don't prioritize those issues. So I think that, so the undercoverage is really looking at the issue before it becomes a problem. I think a lot more emphasis has to be given at understanding how are we using water? What is the impact of boreholes? If you go to many African countries today, there is no water that the state makes available. So people are beginning to dig their own boreholes for water use. What is the impact of those boreholes? When you go to a street, there are 200 boreholes in a street. There is a lot of impact on the environment on those kind of issues. So doing in-depth investigative reporting that is corroborated by data, that does a trend analysis, I think we need to do a lot more of that.
Okay. My other question would be, how would we use the map to report on specifically on the drought in the Horn of Africa or the floods in South Sudan or Lake Victoria Basin? So for example, I'm a journalist and I want to do this story. Would you kindly briefly go through how I would do it effectively?
Okay. Yeah, I think, going to the map, you can be able to do a visual understanding of how we got to where we are today. The map allows you again to look at 40 years of data to understand, okay, some things happened to get us to where we are today. I can guess that urbanization could be one of them. I can guess that increasing population could be one of them. I could guess, as having policies that did not focus on regenerating water usage could be one of them. So the map allows you to do a trend analysis. And then you have to do a little bit more work. So maybe when you're looking at the map and beginning to see when did the water level start dropping or when did the drought start becoming severe, then trying to connect it to other things that were happening in our environment where there was, for example, that could have led to dropping of water levels. So having that data and that visual look over the last 40 years allows you to be able to do correlation to understand how we got to where we are today. And then also allows you to be able to focus on solutions to it. So what can we do? So you can also look at different areas, what has happened in different areas to address this crisis. Because again, when you look at the map, it's not just doom and gloom. You can also look at the map to look at areas that have been able to address these issues. So what did they do to address these issues? And you can apply those as a solution to the Nile Basin, to the flood that we now have in Kenya and in Sudan and all of those areas. So the map really gives you a lot of opportunities to look at history, to look at trends, to look at solutions.
Okay. Thank you so much for that. Maybe the last question, I'm sure a couple of journalists are here. I'm sure you've mentioned it, but maybe just to recap, how are other ways in which journalists will be able to benefit from this World Water Initiative, opportunities and maybe benefits they can make out of it?
The map is available to you already, so it's free for you to go on and test drive the map. Take a look at it, see how important it will be for you to towards the story that you're writing. The data is available. If you need the raw data that actually went into creating the map, reach out to us. We can be able to direct you on how you can download that raw data. And it's an amazing data set that you can now be able to, again, use in different ways in the stories that you're writing. And then when you have written a story with the map, again, like I said earlier on, share it with us, so we can be able to link it to the map if it's possible. It's not every story that will link to the map, but you've done a story that is important, that is seminal, we can link it to the map, and that not only elevates your voice and the work that you're doing, it also lets people understand some of the solutions that are being done out there.
Okay. I'm sure some of us are waiting to hear about maybe grants and opportunities. Do you offer that as well?
I mean, yes, we do offer that. We do have open call for our grants, and so engage with us in our social media platforms. And when you know the grants open up, I believe we have a deadline coming up in January or February next year. That's the next deadline. So engage with us, and when those grants open up, please apply, because you know National Geographic Society is the largest funder of individual storytellers globally, and storytellers does include journalists. So yes, you know, if you have a story that you feel that needs to be told, then reach out to us, apply to our grants. It's a very competitive process because we get a lot of applications, but again, you know, we will look at it for the merit, and if it's something that we feel needs to be told, we will ensure and provide the support to do that.
Okay, thank you very much. Now, before I open the floor to everyone else, there are two questions on the chat box. One of the questions is, you mentioned that the data is updated regularly. Would you be specific on how regular is? And also, there's someone who wanted you to be specific about the hotspot in Sudan. Do you have further information about this?
Okay, so the map was launched in March. We are now in the process of launching the next version of the map, which is basically the professional version of the map, which does a lot more in depth. The first one that was launched was really the general version. So we are looking at the professional version, which should be up by the end of the year. But again, you know, these are updates. I cannot be able to tell you now that this is when the next update is coming. But as I say, check back in, because we will be updating it to be including more and more hotspots, because we know that now we only have 22 hotspots active, but more will be added. So I don't have a timetable that I'm going to say that this is what we'll do. But, you know, once it's done, we'll also send the information out to people to be able to have access to that. Regarding the hotspot in Sudan, I'm trying to pull some of my background information. Steph, I think you shared that with me on some of the active hotspots now. If you have it handy, can you let us know what that hotspot is?
Sure. And while you do that, Paul, I think it would be helpful if you explain to people quickly what a hotspot is and what it means to us.
Yeah, you know, hotspots is really the spaces that are already, that we have put a lot of data that where you can go in and understand the challenges that we have regarding water issues. So really where you can go in and navigate the map and go in and out to understand what are the key challenges that are there regarding irrigation, regarding agriculture, regarding industrial use. So that's where the full data set is already out there for you to be able to visually navigate.
Okay, thank you very much, Paul. One last question from Precious. She's asking, you had mentioned that people can write stories using the map. So how can they get to you so that they can be connected?
Again, getting to us, I mean, you have my email, so please feel free to share my email. You also have Steph's email. Steph is really our key contact person for media inquiries. So if you can be able to reach out to Steph, then Steph can either connect you to me, connect you to our partners at Utrecht University, who are the scientists. I'm not a scientist, I'm a storyteller. So I might not be able to answer questions regarding the science of the data and all of this. So Steph can be able to connect you to those kind of people that will now be able to answer those questions that a storyteller like me cannot answer. So really, Steph should be your key point of contact with National Geographic Society, because she can now know who is the best person that can address the question that you are bringing. And I believe we shared her email address on the last slide.
Okay, thank you so much, Professor Paul. That was very insightful and very interesting as well. I think amongst a lot of environmental issues that are known to be not so interesting, water is a little bit much better than most other issues. It's top tier in the environmental aspect. So I'll quickly jump into the next section of the program where we do our trivia section. We shall be awarding the first, so next month we shall be having the 6th edition of our Nile Science Wednesday, where we shall be awarding all the first 6 that we have done from the month of March to date. And Andrew Aijuka, the floor is yours. Most of the, actually all of the questions that are going to be asked have been talked about by Paul and Steph. So if you are keen, you will be able to answer all the questions, right? So Andrew, the floor is yours.
All right, thank you so much, and happy to be here with everyone. I see lots of people that have met, and yeah, greetings from Uganda, the Pearl of Africa, but also from InfoNile and Water Journalists Africa. So just like how Delicate has told you, this is going to be really quick, and of course, I have 5 questions, and the first person to give me the 3 or the 4 or the 5 right questions will be, putting them down as our winners. So I will go with the first question, and the first question is: the World Water Map was created by the National Geographic Society in partnership with 2 organizations. Name them. Name these 2 organizations. You can type in the chat, and of course, the first person to type in the, the right answer, we will take that as the winner. Yes, I'm waiting. So the question is still, the World Water Map created by the National Geographic Society in partnership with 2 organizations. Yes, I have Paul. Paul, I think Paul was the first. Paul Nwulu. Yeah, Paul Nwulu was the first, and so Paul, congratulate you for that, for the first correct answer. So this is Peter, right? This is Peter, not Paul. It is Peter Nwulu. Peter was the first person to give us the right answer. And let's go to the second question, which is: the World Water Map identifies 22 hotspots facing a significant water gap. Name at least these 3 hotspots. Okay, let's name these 3 hotspots out of the 22. So I'm waiting. I'm waiting for the right answer. I can repeat the question for those that didn't hear it very well. The World Water Map identifies 22 hotspots facing a significant water gap. Name at least 3 of these. I have Kevin Omoro saying Kenya, South Sudan, Somalia. No, I have Kiki. Yeah, Kiki says Java, says Central Valley and River Delta. I think Kiki gets it. Kiki, thank you so much for that correct answer. And then I will go straight to the third question, which is, what is your understanding of water gap hotspots? What is your understanding of a water gap hotspot? Yes, I'm waiting. What is your understanding of a water gap hotspot? Okay, someone should help me out here. Okay, I'm seeing here who is here. Who is here to answer that question? I haven't seen anything else coming in. I need the answer for question number 3, which is, what is your understanding of water gap hotspots? So Stephanie gets it. Stephanie gets it for sure. Okay. Yeah, Stephanie says the demand is greater than the use, and that can sustain. So basically, the demand is higher than the supply. So that way, that becomes a hotspot. And I hope you've taken that. So number 4, which is more like our second last question. The map is built on more than 40 years of hydrological data. Okay, the map is built on years of hydrological data. How did I miss on that? So tell me, how many years is this map built on? I just need the years the map is built on. Okay, I have Margaret and Kevin. Margaret and Kevin, thank you for being so attentive. I have my last question coming in now. And of course, the question is, when was the World Water Map launched? Okay, when was the World Water Map launched? Okay, yeah. Someone says 2019, Kevin. I think no, that's not the answer. Try again. Yes, we have Kiki. I think Kiki is our winner for today. Kiki says that was March 2023. And I would love to thank you all that have participated in this. Kiki, congratulations. And yeah, feel free to congratulate Kiki in the chat. And of course, we would love to thank you for taking part. Over to you, Delicate. Thank you so much.
Wow. Very evident that today's session has been interesting and quite engaging from everyone. Thank you very much, Kiki Ngok. This is evident that you have been very attentive to the rest. So Kiki Ngok has gotten 3 questions right, yes? 3 questions. Kindly, Kiki, write to us, info@infonile.org, so that you can be able to reach out to you as we finalize all the winners. Thank you very much, Paul, for joining us, Steph, and all the other team members from National Geographic Society. I can see there's Meg Olson, there's Steph, of course, I've mentioned, there's Paul, and several others. I'm not able to identify them now, but we really appreciate your input in this session of Nile Well Science Wednesday. And thank you to majority of us have been joining us, this being the 5th edition. We really appreciate your presence, your support, your engagement. We will be letting you people know the next edition of the Nile Well Science Wednesday happening next month in August. So keep it locked. I wish you a very wonderful evening and the rest of the morning and day for those in the US. Have a wonderful day. Bye.